Dance of Home Part 1. Aria sat on the crowded bus, earbuds in, eyes fixed on the small screen in her hands. She was scrolling through YouTube, distracted as usual, when a video caught her attention. It was a grainy recording of a Bulgarian traditional Horo dance, filmed on the cobblestone streets of London. A group of Bulgarian emigrants, wearing a mixture of traditional garb and everyday clothing, were moving in perfect rhythm, their hands clasped tightly together, feet stomping to the beat of a drum. Aria, at 30 years old, had been living in Australia for 25 years. She had long since convinced herself that she had adapted to her new life, suppressing the deep-seated nostalgia for the homeland she had left behind. But as she watched that video, something inside her cracked open. The music, the colors, the laughter, everything about it felt familiar and distant all at once. It was as if a forgotten part of her was waking up, demanding to be remembered. Tears began to well in her eyes as she sat motionless on the bus. The faces of the dancers were full of joy and pride, but there was something else there too, something Aria recognized. It was a longing, a sense of home that she hadn't realized she still carried. It had been buried deep within her for years, ever since her family moved from Bulgaria to Australia when she was 5. Her childhood memories were faded, dusty snapshots of language, food, and smells. But the connection to her roots had never fully gone away. As the video continued, Aria couldn't stop the tears from streaming down her face. The emotions she had kept buried for so long were flooding out all at once. She felt the ache of belonging to two places neither of which she truly felt she fully belonged to anymore. Her mind raced with thoughts of her grandmother's voice, the taste of homemade banitsa, and the sight of the blue mountains surrounding her small village back home. She had spent so many years ignoring these feelings, focusing on building a life in Australia. But now, the truth was undeniable. She missed Bulgaria. She missed the part of her that had been left behind. That evening, Aria couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted within her. The next day, she Googled Bulgarian cultural events in her city. Her search led her to a local Bulgarian folk group called Bulgari, a small ensemble that played traditional folk music and danced. There was a listing for a party at a local hall that weekend. The name of the event was Horo Night, and it promised an evening of dancing, food, and music, a true celebration of Bulgaria. Aria hesitated for a moment. The idea of walking into a room full of strangers was intimidating, but the pull of the music, the culture, the dance, it was too strong. Without overthinking it, she signed up and marked the date in her calendar. That Saturday, Aria stepped into the crowded hall. The sound of a loud gaida filled the air, mixing with laughter and chatter in a language she hadn't spoken in years. The room smelled of roasted meats, freshly baked bread, and the familiar tang of yogurt. For a moment, she felt out of place. There were people of all ages, families with children, elderly couples, and young adults. But as soon as the music began, something in her clicked. She watched, mesmerized, as the Bulgari group started dancing the Horo. Their movements were fluid, graceful, and somehow so deeply connected to the land she had left behind. The rhythm pulled at something inside her chest, and before she realized it, she was on her feet, moving toward the circle. A woman, noticing her hesitation, extended her hand with a welcoming smile. Aria took it, her heart racing. "Come, join us," the woman said in a thick accent. Without thinking, Aria took her place in the circle. The music enveloped her, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel like a foreigner in her own skin. The steps were simple, but the connection to the people around her was profound. They laughed and clapped, and with each step, Aria felt her soul lighten. She wasn't just part of the dance. She was part of something much bigger, a shared history, a collective memory that stretched far beyond her own experience. As the night wore on, Aria was drawn deeper into the rhythm of the music, the storytelling in the songs, and the warmth of the people. The dance became a bridge, carrying her back to a time and place she thought she had lost. The connection to her heritage was no longer just a memory. It was alive, breathing in her body through the music and the dance, just as it had been for generations before her. Weeks later, Aria found herself returning to the Bulgari group regularly. They welcomed her with open arms, teaching her the ancient dances, the folk songs, and the rich history of their culture. It was in these moments that she felt her identity as a Bulgarian woman bloom again. Aria wasn't just a daughter of Australia anymore, she was a daughter of Bulgaria too. By 2020, the Bulgari group was more than just a folk ensemble. It was a community that helped Aria reconcile the two halves of her life. She began to feel whole again, no longer torn between her past and her present. She was Bulgarian and she was Australian. And every time she joined in the circle dance, the sound of the music, the laughter of the people, the stomping of the feet, it was as if the past and the future collided in the most beautiful way. Aria had found her way back home, not through the streets of Sofia or Plovdiv, but through the pulse of the dance and the warmth of the people she now called family. The tears she once shed on the bus were no longer ones of sorrow. They were tears of joy, of remembrance, and of belonging. The journey of a lifetime had led her to this moment, where Aria finally realized home was not just a place. It was a feeling, a rhythm, a dance, and she had found it in the heart of Bulgari. The end of part 1.